We had a 4-practitioner practice. I got to work with really fantastic practitioners. I really wanted people that I could refer to locally that I really thought were brilliant. And that was one of the main reasons for the clinic in lots of ways. I thought, well, the more people we can get access to acupuncture, the better. And if I'm really lucky to have these fantastic practitioners as well that I could refer to, it doesn't really get better than that.
Welcome to Acupuncture West London, the podcast. This is the podcast for students, practitioners and enthusiasts of classical Chinese philosophy, Chinese medicine and acupuncture. I'm your host, Ben Carrigan, coming to your ears all the way from London. So join me as we dive deep down the rabbit hole of Chinese philosophy and into the very concepts that inform our practice. Each episode focusing on a specific topic and its application within a clinical setting. This episode is brought to you courtesy of our brand new ebook, Yin and Yang. What are Yin and Yang? What are the laws of Yin and Yang? And how are they used as defining principles for our very existence? To answer these questions and more, download your free copy at acupuncture-westlondon.com/free ebook. Welcome to part 3 of our Year in Business podcast series. Over 3 episodes, we're talking to practitioners who have set up businesses in various guises. We're discussing the various pros and cons, considerations and potential pitfalls of setting up a practice from home, setting up as a practitioner within an established clinic, as a sole trader or as an employee, and setting up your own business. In part 1, we spoke with Rachel Marks from Oak Ridge Acupuncture. She talked us through a year in business and lessons learned from setting up her own home practice in Horsham, West Sussex. In part 2, we spoke with Vicky Newman from Cherry Tree Acupuncture. She talked us through a year in business and lessons learned from setting up as a practitioner within the Marine Clinic, an established clinic in Rottingdean, East Sussex. If you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, check them out. So to conclude our year in business series, today in part 3, we're speaking to Emma Eaton. Emma is a fully certified member of the British Acupuncture Council. Having initially set up as Eaton Acupuncture, her own practice from home, Emma expanded in April 2019, setting up her own busy clinic in the centre of Cobham, Surrey. Her clinic, the Cobham Acupuncture and Reflexology Clinic, recently hit its 1-year anniversary. Today she's talking to us from Cobham, where she's going to talk us through a year in business, how she's managed her own busy practice, particularly in the times of COVID-19, and her plans moving forward. Hi Emma, thanks for joining us today.
Hello. I quite like the way you said I was certified. I think that's very accurate.
Good.
I am definitely certified. Yes, in so many ways. Good.
Because it's always that thing. Do you say fully certified? Is there such a thing as fully certified? Do you just say registered? Do you just say member? Who knows?
Just a bit bonkers is probably quite accurate. Yes, I think so.
Good. So yeah, how are you doing, first of all?
Yeah, we're good. I mean, we've talked many a time over the last few months, so we know that there's a lot of crazy going on.
A lot of crazy.
And things have, changed quite a lot. And just kind of taking it all 1 week, 1 month, 1 day at a time, whatever we can do. But I think I have spent an awful lot of the last sort of 10 years or so saying things like, I haven't got time. And then suddenly I had a lot of time and I thought, well, I need to stop saying haven't got time and get on with it. All the things that I say, like I haven't got time to exercise, I haven't got time to do this, So I've really tried to use it as a self-care development time, as well as everybody else kind of making sure that, we're all on the ups and downs as well. I can't say it's all been baking banana bread, that's for certain, but definitely try to use it as an opportunity.
But I would say any banana bread is probably a bonus.
Yes, absolutely. And I've no language learning yet.
Yeah, oh, really? Oh, right. Okay, good. Yeah, no, well, I haven't gone down that route either, to be honest. I've read a few books and I've started a podcast, which was what people do when they've got nothing else to do.
It sounds like great work, especially this. I think it's going to be a brilliant voice and really useful to loads of acupuncturists. So,
well, thank you.
Hurrah.
Well, time will tell, won't it? So tell me a little bit about, I know you initially set up your own home practice And then you moved into working within established practices. And then you've just been in practice in your own practice, which just hit its 1 year anniversary recently, maybe about a month and a half ago.
Yep.
So can you tell me a little bit about how you started out and the progression to where you are now?
Sure. So I graduated in 2016, and I was very lucky insofar as the way our house is shaped, I guess, and we were doing some refurbishment work. I was able to have a home clinic with a separate entrance, which allowed me for the first few years to really kind of get stuck in without any rent, really kind of, I guess, get good at what I was doing, learn everything. I also, after the first year of working at home, I took a room for 1 day a week in a local, it's called the Medicine Garden. It had a treatment room. So I worked from there for 1 day a week as well. And then I, after working kind of between the two for about 4 or 5 years, I got very, very busy. And I decided that as much as I loved working from home and I loved the flexibility of working at home, I missed having other practitioners to work with, and I missed going to work, and I missed some boundaries that I guess working from home removes a little bit. And so I decided to take a room within a gym, and I decided to kind of set up a model whereby I was working with 3 other practitioners, all of which were brilliant. And we were very lucky. We got very busy, and I personally absolutely loved it. And then I guess if we did that for about a year, and then in the last few weeks, I got to a point of having to decide whether to continue working there in terms of renewing the lease for another year. And then I've just made the big decision to not continue and renew the lease there. And then I'm actually moving the practice home.
Right.
So there's lots in there to unpick in terms of decisions and pros and cons. But it's definitely, as they say on Strictly, been a journey. I would say.
It's been a journey.
It's
Do
been
they
a
say
journey. They do.
Right.
I can't believe you don't know that.
I'm yet to watch Strictly. No, I know it's terrible. I know.
If ever there was a time to catch up on Strictly, it's now. It will fill your heart with joy and glitter.
Okay, so, I'll look forward to that.
I feel like if I reflect on it all, I definitely feel like I've changed an awful lot. I think when I first graduated, a home clinic was perfect because it, like I say, I didn't have to pay rent. It gave me loads of flexibility. I have a daughter who's 9, and I would love to be able to separate work from the home environment, but that's played as a primary caregiver. My husband works full time. I have had to factor that in as well. And that really helped for the first few years of being set up. And then, like I say, kind of being able to create the clinic in Cobham. And then I guess if we move super fast to where we're at, that's everything's been happening for the last few months. I just feel that bringing the clinic back home with all its pros and cons was the right thing to do for me, really. So it's definitely been lots of change.
Yeah.
But I think we have to change. We change as practitioners, we change, the seasons change. We talk lots to patients about change in Chinese medicine. So I think that's kind of where I've been at, changing lots and adapting to what's been presented.
Yeah, I mean, particularly at the moment, being flexible is such a huge part of everyone's lives, really. I mean, as challenging and stressful as it is for many of us in different ways. But, I know from speaking to you that you were researching so many different ways of framing things and looking into different options and being decisive about the best option for you. I think it was really, really strong.
Yes, I think my new favourite word is agile.
Agile. I like agile. That's good.
It's a great word, isn't it? I've definitely banned unprecedented over the last few months, and I've definitely banned the new normal. I don't think any of us can hear those phrases again. But my new, more positive one is agile. And I had actually been thinking about specialising for a while, and this has kind of, I guess, accelerated everything, because what I'm going to do is specialise in, menopause, over 40s female health. And that's always been something I've loved. And, I did my dissertation on it many years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so I've seen it as so I guess if I think in blocks of how I've practiced over the last few years, I would say the first one was kind of rabbit caught in headlights, just graduated, didn't really know what I was doing, had the flexibility of being at home, could really sort of, not the Ratner's approach, but very much kind of pilot high, sell it cheap. Said yes to everybody. People would ring up and say they've got this. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm just going to quickly Google that, but I'm sure I can handle it. So I think that's definitely been my first block. And then I think I kind of started to I wanted more. I wanted to learn off other practitioners, perhaps got a bit lonely from just doing a home clinic.
Yeah.
So then I got into renting a room at the Medicine Garden for 1 day a week. I think the only thing I'd say about that, I was slightly naive, because I think I kind of did it for two main reasons. The first one was because I guess in my mind, this is pre-COVID land, I thought that having a clinic out of the house for at least 1 day a week would give me credibility. And I kind of also thought that I would get to mix with other practitioners, not other acupuncturists, but I naively thought it would give me a piece of community. But actually, in reality, what happened was I just went in on my own on a day, didn't really see any other practitioners, got really friendly with the lovely coffee lady. She was great, and actually became a patient who I was still treating till recently.
Oh, there you go.
So that was lovely. And the shop lady and all the rest. But I think kind of naively, I thought, oh, if I join there, I'll be, and that's no reflection to them. It was just really the setup, because you go in and you do your stuff. And I've always been really lucky insofar as I've been very busy. So I guess that didn't really give me what I wanted in sense of kind of a community and a best practice share as such. So that's kind of another block where you're sort of entering out and trying different places. And then the kind of final, most recent chapter, not the final, obviously, most recent chapter is where we had, a 4-practitioner practice. I got to work with really fantastic practitioners, not just saying it because you were one of them. But and then it kind of evolved again, and I got a bit more into outsourcing. I guess it kind of clarified my mind on what sort of practitioner I was. And then this next block, which is hopefully to come up, is all about kind of specializing, being solo, because I guess that's what we need at the moment, especially with those horrific words of localized lockdowns and, homeschooling, blended learning, potentially, if there are other outbreaks. So I guess COVID sort of triggered for me, it made me realize that I was quite vulnerable, I guess, as a practitioner. It made me realize that I'd perhaps become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I guess this has kind of made me really sort of come into where I'm at in my life. It gave me another sort of time to change and to start specializing and to go really deep into one subject and hopefully become an expert in that subject and be able to give a bit more holistic advice. So it's just not just about kind of the acupuncture as such. So I don't know if any of that makes sense. That's my blocks. Do you like my blocks?
I do. I love your blocks. They're great. So
I try and think of a better label for them.
No, that
sounds a bit boring.
No, I think we can work with blocks. But I mean, I think the COVID-19 thing, obviously, we all know has been challenging for everyone. I think for me, the best moments came almost when I was staring at a wall, where you kind of have this downtime enforced on you, which is very rare. And I guess if there was any positive to be taken from it, it was, we've all done a few CPDs, we've tried to bake banana bread or do whatever, but it's been really great to just have time to reflect, like you said, on what do I want to do going forward. For me, I thought I want to dive into pulses and also I want to educate myself. But I figured for me, the best way to educate myself was to be accountable for it. And I think having been in college the last couple of years, I just feel a little bit exhausted or a little bit burnt out from motivating myself. So having accountability to something like this podcast where I have to be accountable to others has kind of tricked my metal yang sensibilities into having a way to learn, but to share it with others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it really has made me stop. It's made me think. I have to do quite a big shout out to Nava Carmen, who I think is excellent. And I did her marketing CPD.
Oh, did you?
And one of the most useful things that she does, and this is actually when I thought I was about to I was very much on the train to reopening, because I was quite late loosey on my decision. It wasn't something that, it definitely took me a few months to get to that decision. But her CPD on marketing was really very good, and it made you really think, because I had hurtled, there's no two which ways about it. I hurtled through my degree, I had quite, my daughter was very young. I loved it with all my heart, but it was hard. It was tough, it was very juggly. And then I sort of hurtled into opening up. And then I felt slightly like I hurtled into opening up Cobham. And so it's been really nice to just stop hurtling. And I really found her modules actually made you ask some questions. What does your ideal patient look like? What do you really love doing? How are you changed? And I think I've never really self-reflected on, well, hang on, that's who I was 6 years ago, but is that who I am now? Aren't we fortunate? What we all needed was a pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not.
So it's very easy to sort of get to a point where you tread water, isn't it? And you're just going into work and treating people and going up and down in terms of confidence levels, which I guess is going to happen to all of us anyway.
Absolutely. And I was a great one for ramming them in. I was knackered. I used to do a lot on a Tuesday, 12 patients. And that's not multi-roomed, that's single-roomed. And not many for some people, I know, but it was a lot for me. And I think I was knackered at the end of it. And I think all of that needs to be kind of looked at. And, I love my job, love my job. But when it gets to a point of doing too much, are you giving them the best? Are you becoming slightly resentful? Are you, of course that's going to happen in any job, but just felt I'd lost a little bit of added value. Is probably a good way to put it.
Yeah. So this course of Nava Carmen's, one thing I signed up for was a free video course that she was offering on, I think it was on email marketing and how to set up a list and how to create content. Was that the same one, or was this an actual proper CPD?
No, this is one of her modules. So she does a diploma in fertility, which is excellent. I've heard
it's fabulous, yeah.
Really in depth. And in fact, she was, without girl fanning too much, she was very, very, very good at showing me how to be an expert and deciding what you want to do and going for it. So she definitely inspired me to kind of go to the new level. That doesn't mean if this hadn't all happened, would I still be at Cobham? Would I still be working with an amazing group of people? Absolutely. But I think I would say it's a forced change, but actually I've made the decision. So I need to kind of stop saying it's a forced change, because it was me who's made the decision.
Good.
But I would really recommend it for anybody feeling a bit lost. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about all her courses, and anything I've seen online. I know she does a Monday mastermind thing, which I've tuned into a couple of times. And she's very concise and great at delivering information, easy to listen to, breaks things down into really manageable chunks, which is super.
Yes, I think in as an acupuncturist, like I say, it's such a fab job, but it's so easy to just get a bit lost in it all, I think. Those 45-minute appointments and not really take a step back and go, hang on a sec. And I always say to my husband, which drives him nuts, but I always say to him, well, in my job, I don't get an appraisal. I don't get a bonus. I don't have the promotion. So I think you have to find different ways of developing, but it needs to come with you. And I think the only way you can do that is by asking yourself tough questions. And it's very easy to not ask tough questions. So for me, they weren't to her tough questions, but it made me perhaps reflect more and make hopefully some good decisions going forward.
Well, it's always interesting to hear other people's perceptions on the same situation, or to give you different contexts, which I find really helpful.
And she's very honest. And I think one thing that we can have all these feelings about, are my boundaries that good? Why am I not charging more money? Is it because of self-worth issues? Blah, blah, blah. Not to get too heavy too early.
Yeah, no, well, that's important stuff, because that was one thing I wanted to ask you, actually. Maybe we just talked about, setting up at home and setting up in an established clinic and then setting up your own clinic. And one thing was in terms of how do you do that and pricing and how you do that and how you manage your own business, how you set up appointments, how you create boundaries. So have you found there's been a difference between the various ways that your business has been structured over the years?
Definitely. I think when I first started, like I say, it was very much, say yes to anything, pile the patients in, just keep going. Everything was on a shoestring. I designed the logo. I used black and white because it was cheap. I did my own website. I mean, I laugh now because it was very clunky, to say the least. But I did it. I didn't have any budget, how expensive it is to study. So everything was very quirky, shall I say? That's probably a good word. But it was very it's called a Scarpa, whatever, isn't it? They say, I don't know. Anyway, it was very like a cowboy, but it got me through. It got me through, and it did a great job. So that was definitely. I mean, nobody has pots of money coming out, do they? Let's be honest. So I had to, and the fact I was at home, I didn't have massive outlay. Obviously, I had furniture, but they were all IKEA finest,
of course.
And I did everything I could to make the room look as lovely as possible, because I really wanted to get that kind of quality experience in as much as possible. So it was very much on a shoestring when I started. And I think as it's evolved again, I've been super lucky. People come, people tell their friends. I've always been busy. Well, not initially. Nobody's busy initially. It takes time. But I sort of I had a lot of lucky breaks. I had success with people who were quite influential locally, like a couple of physios, a GP, people who run shops. And I was really, really fortunate that they sung from the rooftops that they'd had success through acupuncture and with me. So a lot of it has been referral. And in fact, for 2 years when I was working at home, I didn't advertise at all, and I was booked and had a waiting list.
That's great.
I was just really, really lucky that key people liked it. Key people wanted to say nice things about me, but it was just slightly depressing not being able to give people access to acupuncture. And also there wasn't a huge amount of people that were practicing locally. And I really wanted people that I could refer to locally that I really thought were brilliant. And that was one of the main reasons for the clinic in lots of ways. I thought, well, the more people we can get access to acupuncture, the better. And if I'm really lucky to have these fantastic practitioners as well that I could refer to, it doesn't really get better than that. So that was kind of the trigger as such. So, but I definitely over time realised the value in investing other people to do things that they are better at than me. So, for example, in the last year or so, I've using a virtual receptionist.
Well, I was going to get onto that, actually. Yeah, I might get onto that in a moment, if you don't mind. I was going to ask you about the point that you decided to set up your own clinic, which was my next question, which you just touched on.
Yes.
So this was really to do with referrals and the fact that you'd already established relationships with GPs and you had a build-up of patients from home. So it was just a natural progression like that.
There were lots of reasons for it. I think I started to go a bit bananas being at home on my own.
Yeah.
I think I really felt that I wanted to talk about best practice. I felt I kind of stopped learning a little bit, and I'd kind of got fatigued in terms of self-motivation. Plus, add in, I just felt that there are cons to working from home.
Yes. I was going to ask you about boundaries, because obviously working from home, you have, let's say if you're working 9 to 5, for me working from home, I think I mentioned this with Vicky yesterday, You get to a certain point during the day, and if you've been sitting at your computer, it's very hard to just go downstairs and switch off. So I always have to leave and go outside, and I'm very strict about if someone emails or texts me at 6:05, I just don't reply till the next day, which sounds a little bit militant, but I just don't do it unless it's urgent.
I know.
Because I feel it's very important to set those boundaries. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that's brilliant. I mean, I can't say I've been as good as that in any way. I mean, it's definitely on my list of things going forward. And I did hear about somebody talking about arches, so that when you walk out of an arch, so I quite like that. And I'll probably try and apply that going forward. That I literally, maybe when I finish a clinic day, I go out the work arch into the home arch. It's quite sweet, isn't it? Yeah. Having these imaginary arches.
Yeah.
But I've been terrible at it. I'm not going to lie. I really do appreciate I need to get better at my boundaries. And I was just a bit of a dabster for having the iPad in the lounge, doing a bit of work at night, not really being present for my daughter or the husband, or getting very mixed up. Not good at all. And I think one of the things I found difficult about working from home is that people knew a lot about me. And for me, I found that difficult. So, for example, I had a new car. I know that sounds a silly thing, but about 3 or 4 years ago, I decided I'd been saving my pennies up and I'd bought a new car. It wasn't a flashy car, wasn't a Porsche, wasn't a Ferrari, wasn't my car of my dreams. It's a Polo, but it was a newish car. And the amount of patients that came in and, weren't making any comment, but obviously had observed the new car. And then it's like, oh, I see business is good then. And for me, I just felt like, well, I don't necessarily want people to know that much about me. That I think that I wanted to be the practitioner. I wouldn't have shared I had a new car normally. No. I didn't really want to talk about the choice of car. I just wanted to, and I'm really like to think I'm pretty good at managing a conversation and a patient that comes with over a few years. And of course I could cut it down in the nicest possible way, but it just, it tweaks me, I just thought, I don't want people knowing about my new car and making judgments about how much I'm charging them.
Well, words come to mind that I probably can't say on this podcast without getting some sort of exclaimer. So, but, I mean, that's the thing about working from home. And it is quite a thing to invite someone into your home anyway. It's quite a big thing to have someone into that space and then for them to leave. I always had this sort of worry if I set up at home that people would turn up on my doorstep on a Saturday afternoon or something when I'm, I don't know, sitting down, having a glass of wine or whatever. Late afternoon, obviously, late afternoon.
We both know you mean 12:05, Ben. Come on.
12:05.
Maybe a minute past if it's a bad day.
A minute past, absolutely. Yeah. It's already in the freezer, Emma, just cooling down.
I can't believe I'm not with you.
I know. So those are some of the cons, obviously, from working from home.
So just on that, that's another thing that did happen to me a lot. So, so very lovely. People would drop presents off. I mean, how evil am I for moaning about that? Isn't that a lovely thing? So they would drop off allotment produce. They dropped off bottles that I didn't mind, but it would be knocking on the door or coming round to the side. So one of my things, when I decided to come back, I've got a wish list. So I said, okay, I'm coming back, but on these terms. And one of them is a really good bell entry system. I know that sounds silly, and great signage.
Love a bit of signage.
Because, I was just over people wandering around and then leaving things on the door. And like you say, they were lucky if I wasn't drunk when I answered the door. I don't know, I could have been shouting at the child. I could have been, so I probably wasn't wearing my best clothes, probably what I like to call my lockdown outfit now.
A onesie or something.
Exactly, unicorn onesie.
Star Wars onesie.
That'd be a bit cooler. But so I found that really hard, I must admit. It is really, that is hard. So there will definitely be some learnings for boundaries going forward as I come back here, I think.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is rebranding a little bit and maybe not having patients quite so close together.
Yeah.
Because when I first started, I would kind of do on the hour, every hour, and without a waiting room, that was difficult. People would be staying in their cars, all of that. But that's another issue, is that obviously post-COVID land, one of the things I really loved about not working at home was a waiting room, was a receptionist, and both of those things would have gone post, lockdown, which I would have been paying rent for. So that was another consideration.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, the pros of working from home, you don't have rent to cover in the same capacity. You might have to look at alternative insurance options. You have to get in touch with your council, obviously, to get a practice license and to follow all their protocols like waste management and this, that, and the other. But once you move into an established clinic, then I spoke to Vicky yesterday, where you have different models of potentially paying rent for a day or a half day versus giving a percentage of your income versus paying a fixed cost per patient.
Yes.
And then there's working as an employee versus being self-employed under your own entity, where you might have your own business name. And then you have your model, which is having your own business. So obviously each has its pros and cons. So what have been the biggest considerations of setting up your own clinic?
So I've experienced all of those different models. And so when I just had the one day at the Medicine Garden, that was a fixed rent per month. I actually worked briefly at another clinic where it was 60-40, maybe it was 60-40 in terms of percentage share. And then obviously at Cobham Clinic for the other practitioners, it was again a fixed rent that everybody paid. This, again, like everything, it's pros and cons. For me personally, I struggled with the percentage share or the fixed price per patient, both as a clinic owner and as a practitioner. I mean, for me, I really loved the fixed rent because I really struggled with the fact that I would see 12 patients in a day and the clinic owner would get a massive percentage of that. And I'd be knackered.
Yeah.
And I also, for me personally, found that I couldn't commit to being part of the clinic in the same way. I think it was easy to be perhaps a little bit more lazy because you were like, well, if I don't have any patients, it doesn't really matter because I haven't really got that fixed price. So for me personally, I always preferred knowing how much rent I was paying per month. And I loved the fact that if I worked hard, I earned more money.
Yeah.
However, if you are ill or if there's a family emergency or if you're on holiday or if there's a pandemic, it's a nightmare because you still have to pay. So I think when everything's great, then the monthly payment really pays off. But I think when things hit a fan, then it's suffocating and it's a worry. So
absolutely, yeah.
And just so on one point you said, Ben, so I know you were saying about at home you have to sort out your license and all of that, but actually even in clinics where they have another acupuncturist, so I've actually had to sort that out at other clinics as well.
Right, okay.
So worth mentioning that.
Yeah, no, that's really good to mention. I mean, I haven't had to do that in my own clinic because the practice there already has a license. Within London, I don't need a practitioner license because I'm within the borough of London. I'm covered under the British Acupuncture Council guidelines. But outside of London, there's different pockets where you need to research that a little more carefully.
You do. So I kind of cross-border on council. So I've had to get licenses. That's the other thing to be aware of. Literally 2 miles. I've had to do a Mole Valley practitioner and practice license. And then I'm in Elmbridge and I've had to do a practice and practitioner license. But I have to say, both of my experiences in that, they have been brilliant. I haven't had any issues. I really feel that if you can relationship build with them, they want you to work. They can see we've all got degrees. We're not cowboys. They know that we know what we're doing. Our hygiene protocols pre-COVID were pretty damn good. So I've really found that if you can relationship build with them, it's been really beneficial, especially when I was in Cobham doing a clinic there, and I rang them up and I said, look, I've got practitioners joining, but I have to be honest, we don't know how it's going to pan out. They might not like it. It might not work. I don't really want to invest in a practitioner license unless we're a bit more secure. And the guy that I'd met before and had come to the inspection was very supportive and was like, well, why don't we see how it goes? And once they committed, then we can. And I just found that really helpful.
That's really good.
So I would definitely view them as an ally, because I have had experience of government departments recently in terms of rates issues, etc. And I would say, the worst thing you can do is go in spoiling for a fight, because they have the power, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Get a name and then hound them, let them become your new best friend.
A couple of emails a day should do it, shouldn't it?
Oh, only two.
Only two, okay.
I had a multi-pronged attack.
So I guess having to look into different councils, like you said, if you're crossing borders, from my understanding, they can be substantially different in costs and the hoops that you have to jump through. So that's also worth looking into and asking those questions. It
can be frustrating as well. I mean, I know that I paid something like £300 for a clinic license, and the guy was there for 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
Of which 3 of them were talking about tattoo artists.
Oh, right. That's really
now,
wrong job.
I like to see that as a compliment, because he could see that the clinic was very clean. I had a sink, everything. I mean, it was me going, and I've got this, and I've got that. And I'm not dissing the guy. He was great, but, that's a lot of money when you're starting out to kind of invest in.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you to Emma Eaton for joining me. Stay tuned for part 2 of my interview with Emma, which is also available now as episode 9. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about Emma, check out cobhamacupuncture.co.uk. For questions about today's episode, I'd love to hear from you, so do get in touch. podcast@acupuncture-westlondon.com. Finally, don't forget to check out the show notes at acupuncture-westlondon.com/podcast, where you can also find more info on free trials and discounts for lots of clinic management solutions we've talked about in this episode. See you next time. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review. To keep up to date with all of our upcoming episodes, sign up to our podcast newsletter. By doing so, you'll get your very own copy of my brand new ebook, Yin and Yang. Check out acupuncture-westlondon.com/free ebook. See you next time.